is Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. I am up here at Togwotee Pass in Wyoming. We flew into Denver yesterday and drove up to Dubois, and the plan was to spend the week up in Yellowstone National Park. Mainly day hiking, but I had also planned to do a night of backpacking up on Slough Creek. And we learned yesterday upon landing in Denver that there's been a historical flooding event and Yellowstone National Park is closed off for the foreseeable future. So I think our new plan is going to be to check out Grand Teton and some of the mountain ranges surrounding Yellowstone. We might try to see some of the Wind River Range, the Teton Wilderness, the Washakie Wilderness. Up around the Beartooths is not safe for travel at the moment, so we probably won't make it up there. But we're kind of here for a week until we can fly back home. Thankfully, most of the places we booked to stay are in the communities outside of Yellowstone. So far, everyone we've reached out to around Grand Teton and Cody said they didn't get hit with it very badly. We did have a couple nights up in Cooke City. We talked to the people we booked that reservation through. They're still kind of up in the air as to whether we're going to be able to get up there or not. So I do have camping gear. We might have to wing it for some of this trip. Kind of a bummer. I was really looking forward to my first spring trip to Yellowstone. The rain they had the last few days is unprecedented. I really feel for the people in Gardner. They're stranded. They're in bad shape right now. So we are kind of trying to stay out of the way of any rescue efforts while we're out here. But we're going to make the best of it. I don't know where the road's going to lead us.
I do 30 minutes.
Could you not? So I haven't filmed a lot today. We went down to Grand Teton this morning, and now we're headed toward Cody here in Boysen State Park, just getting into Wind River Canyon. We drove this in 2019. It's a beautiful drive. It really feels great to be here right now. This trip obviously cannot go as we planned it at all. And the folks that live around Yellowstone have it much worse than we do. My heart really goes out to them. But it is beautiful here today.
Feels good to be back.
I don't know how well you can see him through the trees, but we spotted a moose. How awesome is this? It is now Wednesday, June 15th, around 6:20 p.m. So let me catch you guys up on the last couple of days. Yesterday, I got up super early and left our hotel in Dubois to drive up Togwotee Pass looking for wildlife. Didn't really see a whole lot. Drove back into town, picked her up. We had some breakfast at the Cowboy Diner and drove into Grand Teton. It was pretty cloudy and foggy, not a great scenery day, but a pretty good wildlife day. We saw a black bear. We got to pull off and watch him for a little bit. I brought my zoom lens, so hopefully I got some pretty good still shots. We also saw a bald eagle and a coyote fighting over a carcass for a bit. That was pretty cool. And from there, we had to drive the long way around to Cody. We stayed in a cabin there last night. Had a pretty interesting dinner at the Irma Hotel. And then this morning, I got up around 3:30 and drove to the east gate of Yellowstone looking for wildlife again. Saw a couple deer and bison, but nothing major. Drove back into town to pick her up. We grabbed some breakfast at Granny's. Met my cousin who happened to be in town, and he followed us up Chief Joseph Highway to the Sunlight Bridge Overlook. We hung out there for about an hour, got some video and photos, and kind of got to hang out and catch up with him. Talked to a Forest Service ranger who informed me that we actually could get to Cooke City. I didn't think that was even going to happen.
I was so excited.
Yeah. Even though it's a bummer we can't get into Yellowstone, it felt good to drive up the Chief Joseph and take that left and drive into Cooke City. We stopped at the Beartooth Cafe and had some dinner and spotted a couple moose. Actually, one on the Chief Joseph Highway and another one just outside Cooke City. The one outside Cooke City was a mom and a calf. Didn't get to watch her too long. As soon as she saw us looking, she kind of got spooked and ran off. But still, pretty good couple days for wildlife. Like I said, it's nice just to be able to be out here. There's a spot we like to camp that overlooks Pilot and Index Peak, so we're going to head there in a few. And yeah, it's a bummer we can't get into Yellowstone, but the scenery out here is beautiful. I mean, some of the best probably anywhere in the U.S. I've been, and it feels good just to be able to be out here and at least kind of be out in it for a couple of days. Anything else you'd like to add about the trip so far?
Yeah, even if you can't get into the park and you're still planning on taking a trip out here, it's still worth it just to drive out this way. Driving the Chief Joseph Highway is absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, the people in the town of Cooke City right now, it's having a pretty big impact on them, the events of the last few days. So even if you were able to, make it into that little town, it's worth the drive, worth it to support the business that they would have otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. I know a lot of the big draw to Cooke City, there's a lot of traffic that comes over Beartooth Pass from Red Lodge, but most of the traffic are Yellowstone visitors, and it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get into Yellowstone from Cooke City for the foreseeable future. The Chief Joseph Highway from Cody is kind of the only way in and out of there, but I would say if you're thinking about going there or you have plans and you're thinking about canceling, it's worth consideration for coming up here. It's beautiful in its own right. I wouldn't let the absence of being able to cross the park boundary dissuade me from coming out here. If you just like being in nature, I mean, the mountains and the valleys and the river, it's just, it's some of the best scenery that I've been able to find anywhere. And I'm just grateful that we're able to spend a couple of days up here. We're gonna head back down to Cody in a few days. We're staying at the Absaroka Mountain Lodge. And from there, we're headed back to Dubois. I'm kind of hoping that the south entrance of Yellowstone will be open. They've been talking about trying to get it back open this weekend, and we might have enough time to at least drive in there for a part of a day, maybe the better part of a day, before we have to make the drive back down to Denver to fly home. So we're still hopeful that'll work out. If not, there's so much beauty and there's so much to be seen around here. We're gonna make the best of it as best we can. Well, it's not the campsite on Slough Creek that I was set on, but for a plan B, I think we'll make do pretty nicely. And I got a little bit of Jameson to help us along the way. Cheers. Here is our view from camp. I've definitely slept in worse. So on the menu for tonight's camp dinner, I've got some Mountain House chili mac and corn chips. Amber has some Mountain House spaghetti and meatballs. Good lazy camper food. Adding the corn chips to the Mountain House chili mac, definitely the way to go. Recommended highly.
We just wrapped up with dinner. We're about to enjoy the sunset and the view of Pilot Peak and Index Peak. We're gonna have a campfire, and in the morning we'll get up, we'll do breakfast. We're gonna have biscuits and gravy. I'm excited. And then we'll probably make our way into Cooke City one last time. And then we'll be on our way towards our next destination for day number 3. We'll greet you in the morning.
Good morning, day number 3. Man, it feels good to be out here. Waking up in this freezing cold air out in these mountains, it just hits you right here and makes you feel alive like nothing else. I'm really thankful just to be here today. The plan for today is to cruise around this area, kind of checking for wildlife. We had some pretty cool spottings yesterday. Might stop back in at Cooke City for a few. And then we're gonna make our way in the general direction of Cody. I'd like to find a short hike to do. If this was further on into the summer, there's a ton of hikes out here I'd be dying to hit, but this early in the season, a lot of it's gonna be snowy and muddy, if it's accessible at all, so we're having to improvise a little bit. Tomorrow night, we're staying at the Absaroka Mountain Lodge outside the east entrance of Yellowstone, so we're probably gonna make our way in that general vicinity to find camp today. Man, it's just awesome out here. Cheers. I've decided it's way too pretty out here to spend any more time in the car, and I'm dying to hike, so I'm gonna head down to the Crazy Lakes and Lost Lakes area, and Amber's gonna cruise around and head into Cooke City for a few hours. About an 8 or 9 mile round trip. A few miles into the trail here, and it looks like I've reached an impasse. The trail crosses that, and while I've forded my share of streams and rivers before, I would have to swim to make it across that. I'm gonna walk up and down and see if there's another spot where I can cross, but it's looking like this won't happen today. I've got about 3 hours to try to complete this 6-hour round trip, plus almost 2 miles back to the trailhead from here. Just to show you why I haven't spent a lot of time filming, a lot of the trail is really muddy, and there's been quite a few down trees once I got into the woods. Some of them are easier to navigate around than others, but it's slowing me down a little bit. And normally, I try to film the trails as accurately as I can. I don't want my hiking videos to just be a highlight reel of the pretty parts, but I'm trying to get to my destination and back on a time crunch, so getting a little bit less video through this nasty stuff than I otherwise might. Finally climbing up out of the trees again. Okay, so what you just saw was the second water crossing of the day that I decided was not wise to try to get across. There was one I was able to get through just fine. Right before Lost Lake, that's kind of a bummer, but it's mid-June, it's early in the season to be out here anyhow, and they've just had record rainfall, so none of this is terribly shocking. I'm gonna hike back to my last trail junction and stop and grab a quick lunch. I've got about 2 hours before I'm supposed to be back at the trailhead. I might be able to book it over to the Ivy Lake area and back. I'm gonna get a little further up the trail and see how I'm looking time-wise. So headed in the direction of Ivy Lake, the trail pops out into this really pretty open meadow, but due to time and the sound of rushing water ahead, which has meant I couldn't make it much further so far today, it's time to turn around. Facing northwest here, dead center, there's a clearing in the trees, and that's where I would have wound up hiking through had I been able to ford that first water crossing of the day. That view you see sticking up through the trees there is Pilot and Index Peak. And it makes me feel sentimental every time we come out here and see that. The first time we drove out here in 2019, we came up from Colorado and were wowed by the beautiful drive up Chief Joseph Highway. But I still recall the first time we got to the end of the road, took a left, headed toward Cooke City, and we saw this view of Pilot and Index. And we're just absolutely blown away. You can't help but know that you've really arrived somewhere special when you see this. And it never gets old for me. Just off the trail, there's this little unnamed lake or pond through this marsh here. And just on the other side, right around that clearing dead center of the screen, spotted a moose as I walked up. Unfortunately, he spotted me and got spooked and ran. I did get to watch him through my binoculars for a minute before he disappeared into the woods. It's about 10 after 12 and I can almost see the trailhead from here. I'm really glad I decided to do this today. Didn't make it to any of the destinations that I had in mind, but that's okay. The scenery out here is still magnificent, and I'm glad for the opportunity just to be out here. We've spent the last few days in the car a lot, and there's been a ton of great scenery driving around, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy the chance to get out here on foot and just walk through the wild, rugged country and slow down and really see everything and smell it and just get out there, even if it's just a tiny bit. There's not been a part of the entire Yellowstone ecosystem that I've hiked through and not fell in love with. Today was no exception. The moose sighting just a few minutes ago absolutely made my day. Unbelievable. Well, I beat Amber back to the trailhead. So now I've got a little bit of a road walk down this dirt road to the main highway. If I don't see her there, I'll just hang out and wait for her. This is a pretty awesome view for a road walk.
I was born to be a criminal.
We were pleasantly surprised to find the access road to Silvergate was not only open, but we were actually able to find a cabin for the night here and grab some barbecue from the food truck right up the road. While we're here in town, we're kind of doing what little bit we can to support the businesses here. We decided to spend part of the afternoon driving from Cooke City up Beartooth Hwy. I wasn't sure how far we'd be able to get, but we actually made it all the way up here to Long Lake before we got to the closure gate. It's unfortunate the circumstances that it's under, but we pretty much have the place to ourselves. There is nobody else up here. I've never been up here when it was still this snowy and the lakes are frozen, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Here is an early season look at Beartooth Lake. Mid-June and is still completely frozen over. We camped here in 2020, and this is one of my favorite alpine lakes I've visited anywhere. It's an area I always want to come back to and spend some more time. No visit to Silvergate is complete without a sighting from this guy. Good morning, day number 3. I'd like to apologize for the lack of updates yesterday. We're flying by the seat of our pants here, so we're a little disorganized. We had yet another change of plans. Rather than camping down near Cody like we thought we would, we talked to the people from the Range Rider Lodge where we usually stay in Silvergate, Montana, and the lodge is closed for a few more weeks. They're dealing with some utilities issues, but they were able to rent us one of the cabins behind the lodge, and we love this area a lot, so we jumped at the opportunity to stay here. I know it's a drop in the bucket compared to all the cancellations they're having this year, but we wanted to support the businesses around here, at least in some small way. And on that note, I've been told that there's been a lot of news reports saying that Cooke City and Silvergate are either in dangerous conditions or completely inaccessible. We've been here for a few days talking to local businesses and workers, and that's not the case. Some places are still dealing with some minor issues, but most everything is open. It's up and running. If you're thinking about heading this way, I would really try to avoid canceling if at all possible. This is as of today, which is June 17th. The situation out here tends to change rapidly, so I don't know that that'll be accurate information by the time I get this video out. But coming to Cooke City and Silvergate is something that we've done every year for the past few years, and it's a place we really look forward to visiting. It's not a big touristy type of place. You've got a couple hotels, lodges, and restaurants, and it's nestled out in the wilderness. And that's what I love about coming out here. And that type of experience isn't for everybody, but if it's something that you're looking for, nowhere on earth beats this place right here. Our lodging hosts were kind enough to let us use this spotting scope last night. And check this out. Right from the front porch of our cabin, you've got this view here. We've spent the morning looking up there through the scope watching mountain goats. How cool is that? So here's the Range Rider Lodge, where we've stayed many times coming here. Really beautiful old log building. Now be aware that there's no Wi-Fi, there's no TVs, there's not a whole lot of amenities. You don't come here for a luxury experience, you come here to be out somewhere wild. Even if you decide to come here when Yellowstone's not accessible, you're not far from Beartooth Hwy, from the Chief Joseph Hwy and the Sunlight Bridge and Dead Indian Pass, and there's a lot of beautiful scenery to enjoy out here. A lot of great chances to see wildlife. I would not let the inability to enter Yellowstone make me feel like a trip out here would be wasted, because it would not by any means. So here's the bridge over Crazy Creek that we've gotten conflicting reports about. Yesterday as we drove in, we talked to a gentleman who appeared to be a park ranger for Yellowstone, and he said he was unsure if they were going to close the bridge off entirely or they were going to shut down to one lane. And the residents of Silvergate told us they had attended an emergency meeting and were told that the bridge was going to be closed off completely within the hour. So it is now the following day and the bridge is currently running at one lane, but you can see it has suffered some damage from the storms. About half an hour ago, we probably had our most epic ever bear sighting. I wasn't close enough to get great footage on video, but I did bring my SLR camera with the zoom lens, so hopefully I got some good still shots to share with you guys. Through this canyon we're looking at runs the Clark Fork of the Yellowstone River. And this is just absolutely stunning country out here. I cannot get enough of it. We are currently at the east entrance of Yellowstone. Awesome drive in from Cody. This is as far as we can get. We did see a moose on the way in. So we just arrived at our cabin here at the Absaroka Mountain Lodge. Really beautiful property. We're gonna have dinner at the lodge later on and probably hang out for the campfire. If you find yourself out here having dinner, let me make something easy for you. Go ahead and order a steak. Thank me later. This is a pretty awesome setup right here at the lodge on Gun Barrel Creek. Not a bad place to spend the evening. It's around 9 p.m. After we finished dinner, I decided to leave and go cruising looking for wildlife, which I've done almost every day of the trip and struck out pretty much every time except for tonight. I saw a bison as soon as I left the lodge, but what really stole the show was a sow grizzly and a cub. This is my 5th trip to Yellowstone. Never seen a grizzly before today. And to see 3 of them in the same day is really something special. They're such magnificent creatures. I didn't get any video of the bears I saw a while ago. I did get some still shots, and I do want to make it clear that if you see the still shots I'm sharing of some of these animals, I'm using a pretty long-range zoom lens. Most of them I actually took from inside the car. There's safety regulations for viewing and photographing animals, especially bears. Make sure you follow them at all times if you come out here. And I know a lot of people do, but not everybody really knows that. Again, I just want to reiterate, photographing wildlife, it's imperative you do it from a safe distance. And also, enjoy it, have fun with it. It's freaking awesome. Unless I see anything really exciting between now and making it back to the lodge, this is gonna be it for day number 4. See you in the morning. Good morning, day number 5. It's around 7 a.m. We're about to head down to the lodge and grab some breakfast. And from there, we've got about a 5-6 hour drive to Grand Teton National Park. And once we get there, the plan is for Amber to drop me off on one side of Jenny Lake. I'm gonna hike up as far into Cascade Canyon as I can get, come back down the other side of Jenny Lake, and while I'm out on trail, she's gonna go cruise around Grand Teton and head into Jackson to grab some lunch. Good times. So we're about halfway between Cody and Thermopolis. And you gotta give it up to the state of Wyoming. Even their rest stops are pristine and beautiful. It is now 3 p.m. We're back in Grand Teton National Park, and I'm about to have Amber drop me off at the String Lake trailhead. I'm going to go around Jenny Lake and as far up into Cascade Canyon as I can make it. And a few hours later, she's going to pick me up at the Lupine Meadow side of Jenny Lake. I'm currently on the west side of Jenny Lake, looking south. So this is as far as I could make it up Cascade Canyon today with the time constraints that I have. Wanted to make it all the way to the South Fork, but I think I'm maybe 1.5 miles short.
These spring colors are absolutely electric in this sunlight. I'm currently exiting Cascade Canyon, and soon I'll be dropping down to the other side of Jenny Lake. I've been wanting to come out here for a few years and do a backpacking loop. We actually tried to get a permit for the Cascade paintbrush loop for August of 2020, and there were no campsites available for the days we needed. If we could have done the hike the day before or the day after, we would have been good. Scenery is absolutely 5 stars out here. Normally I try to avoid the popular touristy hikes, but for convenience sake, I wanted to check this one out today, and I'm really glad I did. Got about 45 minutes before I'm supposed to meet Amber at the Lupine Meadows trailhead. I think I got about 1.5 miles to cover, mostly going downhill. Probably can't see the little pika right in the center of my screen, but I can hear him. A lot of the trails I've hiked in Grand Teton are very rocky like this. You really have to watch your step, and it makes it difficult to make good time, even when the trail is flat. Of course, it also makes it difficult to make good time if you're climbing up on top of things trying to get shots every 10 minutes. I'm almost back to the trailhead. Covered probably 10-11 miles today. Wildlife sightings included marmots, chipmunks, and pikas. This is going to be it for day number 5. See you tomorrow. Good morning. It's day number 6. This is going to be the last day of the trip. I'm here behind the Black Bear Inn at the fire pit area. They actually have a campfire and do s'mores out here every night. Pretty cool. I want to take a minute to thank Liz and the rest of the crew at the Black Bear Inn, and also Terry and Chris and everyone up at Silvergate Lodging. Obviously nothing on this trip went as planned, and they helped make the fly by the seat of our pants improvising type experience more enjoyable. Huge shout out to those guys for sure. The plan for today is to drive up Rockefeller Parkway, drive back down through Grand Teton, and I think we're going to try to drive down through Pinedale and see some of the southern part of the Wind River Range before we make our way back to Denver to catch our late flight out. This trip's been an interesting adventure. In some of our previous trips, we've traveled through some of the places outside of the park, and I always felt like we had to rush through them, and they're so beautiful that they're worth stopping and taking some time to spend there, and I'm glad we got the opportunity to finally do that, even though I wish it was under different circumstances. We knew we were going to fly back into Denver in August, and we weren't sure exactly what the plan was once we got there. Due to the way this trip went, we've decided we're going to drive up and camp out at Coulter Bay and spend as much time as we can in the South Loop of Yellowstone, because we didn't get to see any of it on this trip. So I'm looking forward to that, and I know Amber's really excited that in 6-7 weeks we'll be back out here again. On the drive out, I'm definitely going to stop and take some shots and share some scenery with you guys. If I don't get a chance to do a proper outro video, this is going to be the end of the trip. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.
Much dark in German. Way better.